Welcome to another in our series of Kehillat Israel podcasts. This is a recording of Rabbi Amy Bernstein's weekly Friday morning Torah study.
We are beginning Shemot. We are beginning the book of Exodus. We are coming out of the story of Yosef. Yosef, of course, at the end of our story, has made Egypt incredibly successful, is the right hand to Pharaoh. And as a part of taking care of Egypt, he massively expands Pharaoh's private ownership of the land of Egypt. So he buys, because people are starving and their crops are not producing, he buys their land. So for the crown. So now Pharaoh owns much, much more of Egypt. And it kind of sets the stage for some resentment to have been building up in the population against whoever they can find, right, to be resentful of. So I think it's relevant on every level for societies that deal with economic inequity and the inequity of opportunity. That's show me a society really that isn't. This is relevant for all time as long as there are human beings trying to live together in cities. So we get set up by Joseph for this incredible inequity in Egypt. And by the time we begin the book of Exodus, the Israelites have been oppressed as a class for 400 years. They are Ivrim, and Pharaoh is the first to identify us as a nation, by the way, as a people. It is Pharaoh who says that people might get too big and then take the side of our enemy, and then I'll be in trouble. We'll all be in trouble. So it is Pharaoh who identifies us as a people first. It is not we who identify ourselves that way. And it always brings me back to the idea of the Nazis determining who's a Jew, right? Like it was their definition, not the people that were going to be murdered as a result. They didn't necessarily feel Jewish, but if they had one Jewish grandparent, they were considered a Jew. So as usual, who's a Jew in some ways is identified by the anti-Semites, right? So, and then of course we do a really good job of arguing about that ourselves and kicking people out and keeping people out ourselves, saying you're not really a Jew. So we take over the rest of the work. So that's how we're beginning the book of Exodus. We know, of course, that Moshe is saved as a baby from the decree to drown all baby boys in the Nile. He is saved by his mother hiding him, then placing him in a basket that she waterproofs and places in the bulrushes by the shore. So we know that he's placed in a basket. Pharaoh's daughter is coming to bathe. She sees the basket, has one of her handmaidens reach out and bring the basket. She opens it. She sees that this is a Hebrew baby. We don't know how. She identifies him as a Hebrew baby, possibly by how he's swaddled. We're not sure what the identifier is because they did circumcise in ancient Egypt, so that wouldn't have been it. So Miriam, his sister, has been following along to watch what happens to her baby brother, and she has the chutzpah to speak to Pharaoh's daughter and say, shall I fetch you a wet nurse for him? Because what is Pharaoh's daughter supposed to do with this baby if it's a Hebrew baby, right?
Kill it.
Kill it.
She's supposed to kill it.
Right. Drown it in the Nile, or at least turn it in, right? Like at least, her father's decree is that every baby boy from among the Hebrews should die. So, and Pharaoh was a god in Egypt. So she's defying the god of Egypt, her own father, her god, to say she took, and Torah tells us that she saw he was beautiful and she took compassion on him. Chemla is the word used in the Torah, and in the High Holiday Liturgy, we say, chamalta aleinu, like we ask God to have chemla for us. Like rachamim, it is unearned, right? That we don't deserve it. We ask for it anyway. And so this is out of this sense of chemla. She asks Miriam, yes, please fetch me a wet nurse. Miriam fetches the baby's mother, Yocheved, and she's paid to nurse the baby. They were nursed for years in the ancient world, especially among the upper classes. And someone else did it, right? So the baby is with someone else until it's weaned, which is about the age of 3. Nothing from this beginning of the story tells us anything about what Moses knows about his origins. He's raised in the palace as a prince of Egypt. He is raised as Pharaoh's daughter. How she gets away with that, we have no idea, right? She's not pregnant. How does she have a son that she raises in the palace, and explain how that happened? But maybe Pharaoh's too busy and doesn't care that there's another baby in the palace. I don't know. But however she pulls it off, in pulling that off, she makes Moshe royalty. We have no idea what Moshe knows. So we're going to see in a minute. We're gonna look at the commissioning of Moshe, because again, I just felt really drawn to reconstruct our relationship to fire. You all got the email, I hope, that I sent out for the new year, saying this is the year of the fire horse, and that fire is not only about destruction, it's also about what gets forged in fire, and anyway, and new possibilities and all that stuff. So then I was like, oh, well, of course our Torah portion this morning deals with a bush that is what? On fire. Of course. And found some really lovely, as I always try to do for you each week, and for myself, found some lovely teaching around that feels really apropos of this moment for us in this community. Okay. So any questions before we get started? Pam, I don't want to go too quickly over all of the things that I just explained happened. We all clear on what happened? We all clear on the story? Okay. All right. Oh, wait, one more thing I want to say is that, the nerd in me that loves archaeology and all of that, anthropology stuff. I am someone who is very interested in the ways that the story of Akhenaten lines up with Moses being a prince of Egypt who has an encounter that convinces him that there's only one God that needs to be worshipped and to be in relationship with. Remember, Akhenaten wanted that as well and achieved it to some extent while he was Pharaoh. And then when he died, his statues were desecrated, and because the class of priests and priestesses of all of those other gods and goddesses in Egypt were not happy to be out of a job, right? And a place to live. If you're not living at the temple serving Isis, then where are they supposed to go? So now this whole population, this whole profession of people were pretty angry about what Akhenaten was doing. But I am someone who really believes our story does not come out of nowhere. I really believe there was something going on in Egypt that led some royals to this heretical position of monotheism, or a sort of monotheism, not pure monotheism. We don't get that till Deuteronomy, but that, I'm always fascinated by that. So, all right, so now let's go to text. So we remember Moshe kills a taskmaster for beating a Hebrew. We're told that it's his kinsman, meaning a Hebrew, but we don't know that Moshe knows that he's Hebrew. There's no indication of that. Only the omniscient author seems to know that. Because here, where it says one of his kinsmen, right? Ish Ivri me Echav. And an Ivri, a Hebrew person, me Echav, from among his brothers. But we're not told Moshe knows that. We're told he does this on behalf of an Ivri. And some people want to say he lashed out, but if you look at the Hebrew, Vayifen Kovacho, he looks, after he does this, he looks this way and that way, Vayar, and sees Ki Ein Ish, that there's nobody around. So he's not in a murderous rage and then fleeing. He looks this way and that. He sees that there's nobody around. Then he strikes the Egyptian. He struck him down, he killed him and hid him in the sand. So he has time to hide the guy in the sand, all this. So this is not a hot-headed Moshe. This is a premeditated act out of Moshe sensing how horrible it is that this is happening to these people who can't defend themselves. Then when he goes to confront two Hebrews fighting, they said, "Who made you chief?" Right? Yeah, great. So when you have an oppressed people, right, they internalize that oppression and this is a charming response. "Who made you boss?" Right? Do you mean to kill us as you killed the Egyptian? Now Moshe knows there were witnesses to him killing the taskmaster, and Pharaoh heard of it, right? The report gets to Pharaoh, and Moshe has to flee because now he is an enemy of the crown. Only the crown has the power to inflict capital punishment. All right, so he comes to Midian. He settles in Midian. He helps the 7 daughters of the high priest of Midian who are coming to water their flock. So Moshe rises to their defense when other shepherds are trying to say, no, you can't drink. Moshe rises to their defense and he watered their flock. They tell Dad, who here is called Reuel. We know him as Yitro. So there's probably 2 traditions. He's called Yitro and he's called Reuel. He's like, well, how did you get the sheep watered so fast? And they said, an Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us and watered the flock. So all we have about Moshe is that he presents as an Egyptian. We have nothing to indicate that he understands himself as anything other than an Egyptian. He presents to them as an Egyptian. All right. So then Reuel says, well, why'd you leave him there? He helped y'all. Like, that's not very polite. So go get him, bring him in for a Shabbos dinner. They did. He marries Tzipporah, one of these daughters of Reuel. All right. And he has 2 sons. Okay, that's what we're going to pick up. Don't worry, Pam. We're going to dig into the text. Here we go. Vayishma Elohim et Nakatam. Vayizkor Elohim et Brito. Et Abraham et Yitzchak et Yaakov. All right. So God hears the moaning of the people and, I forget. They cry out, right? Vayamat melech Mitzrayim, the Pharaoh of Egypt dies, and the Israelites are groaning under the avodah, the service. Vayitzaku, and they cry out, and that rises to Elohim, and God hears. Okay, so what's important here is that they cried out. For the rabbis, this is critical. Shema Elohim vayizkor. God hears and remembers. What does God remember? Et Brito, God's covenant with Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Vayar Elohim et bnei Yisrael, vayeda Elohim. And God sees the people Israel, and God knows. Okay. This word in Hebrew, this is our word for knowing. This is a very intimate word, a very intimate sense of knowing. This is, the euphemism for sexual intimacy. It's the same root. To know someone biblically, right, is to know on a very deep and intimate, close level. All right, before we start where we're going to dig in, do you want to say something?
Amy, what does it say about God that he just forgot us always?
Thank you, Susan. So that's also another verb that the rabbi sees on, vayizkor, right? God remembers. So it seems that in Hebrew, there's not a sense of yizkor being like, I forgot and then suddenly I remembered. It's not about forgetting. Remembering seems in biblical Hebrew and even forward into our service of yizkor. It is an active process of paying attention differently. So it's not in English, when we say he remembered, she remembered, what we're saying is they forgot and then they remembered. You have to forget before you remember. That's not the relationship in Hebrew. In Hebrew, it's like God pays attention differently. God focuses. God just kind of screens other stuff out to go, oh, wait, what's happening over here? Okay. Moshe haya ro'eh etzon Yitro. So Moshe is, we're told, ro'eh tzon. He is a shepherd of the flock of Yitro, his father-in-law. Kol hen Midian, the priest of Midian. Okay? So he's driving the flock into the wilderness, El Har HaElohim, to the mountain of God, Choreva, towards Chorev. Right? And anybody who's just finished the book of Genesis has some of these references in mind, right? Towards Chorev. We had Chorev. Vayera malach Adonai elav. So, and a messenger of Yud He Vav He appears to him, b'labat esh, in a flaming fire, mitoch hasneh, from within hasneh, the bush, the shrub, think tumbleweeds, right? The dry scrub of the Midbar. Midbar is not desert like Lawrence of Arabia. Midbar is desert where there is growth. So more like Palm Desert, right? So there's growth, but it's scrubby growth. Vayar, and he sees. V'hine hasne, and behold, or yo, as you know, I like to translate it, hasne bo'er ba'esh. The sneh is burning by fire. This is the disjunctive of, but hasne enenu ukal. The sneh was not ukal, eaten. Vayomer Moshe, and Moshe says, Asurana, I will turn, ve'er'eh et hamar'eh hagadol hazeh, and I will check out this vision, not vision, that makes it sound like he's hallucinating. Mar'eh, this sight, this amazing sight. Madua lo yiv'ar hasneh. Why isn't the sneh burning? Vayar Adonai. And God sees now. So Moshe stops, Moshe sees, Moshe looks, Moshe investigates. God sees now that Moshe's turned to look at this thing. Vayikra elav Elohim mitoch hasneh. And that's when God decides to call to Moshe from with inside the sneh. Vayomer Moshe, Moshe, Vayomer Hineni.
Hineni.
So God calls Moshe, Moshe twice. Where else do we get this double call? Avraham, good, right? Avraham. So Moshe, Moshe, Vayomer, and he says, Hineni. That's the correct response. I'm here, I'm ready. Moshe understands this is some kind of confrontation with something that's not normal. And God says, Al tikrav, don't come closer. Take off your sandals from your feet. Ki hamakom asher ata omed alav admat kodeshu, because the place on which you're standing, it is holy ground. Vayomer, and this is still God talking, and then we only know that from what gets said. Anochi Elohei Avicha. I am the God of your ancestors. Elohei Avraham, the God of Avraham. Elohei Yitzchak, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Yaakov. Vayaster Moshe panav ki yareh mehabit el ha'Elohim. And Moshe turns his face away because he was afraid. Yerah, right? Yareh. He was afraid. Mehabit, to look on God. And God says, I've marked well the plight of my people in Egypt, have heeded their outcry because of their taskmasters. Yes, I am mindful of their sufferings. I have come down to rescue them from the Egyptians and to bring them out of that land to a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the region of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. This is why the rabbis say it's important that they cried out. Ve'atza, and now, says God, lo, tza'akat b'nei Yisrael ba'a elai. That outcry, that cry of the people Israel has come to me. And I've also seen the pressure that Mitzrayim is putting on them, right? The suffering that Mitzrayim, that Egypt is putting on them. Now, I'm sending you to Paro to take them out of Egypt. So we have this is the commissioning of Moshe. We've talked many times about this scene in Torah. We know that Moshe starts arguing, I'm not the right guy, you've got the wrong guy. And rather than God saying, escúchame, do you think I'm going to make a mistake here? Really? Instead, God is very understanding. And we have this lovely conversation between God and Moshe. What I have always appreciated about the story, y'all have heard me teach it a lot. You know, there's so many things I appreciate about the story, that Moshe pays attention, that Moshe turns to look further. When I study this with bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah kids, I say to them, when we study this, if this is their Torah portion, I say, so what do you think God's looking for in a leader? Because it's not until Moshe turns and looks and does all this stuff and finds out the bush is not being consumed. It's not until Moshe does all this that God calls to Moshe saying, you're the one I'm sending. And so I say to the kids, what do you think God's looking for? If this is a test, is this the right guy? And God seems to think it is. How did Moshe pass the test? What was the test? What was God looking for, right? So obviously lots about curiosity, lots about the courage to look, the courage to investigate, the curiosity to investigate, the chutzpah to take flammable sheep anywhere near something that's on fire, right? Rather than just take daddy's property and get the heck out of there. Like all the things that we appreciate about what this test might have been. And the rabbis do understand this as a test. They understand his commissioning as God tests, not as a test, but as like, it's only after God notices Moshe doing all these things, when God realizes this is what Moshe responds to the bush on fire, like God is like, okay, I'm clear. This is my guy. So for the rabbis, and especially the mystics, that bush has been burning since the beginning of time. That bush has always been on fire. And Moshe is the only one who, rather than take everything and get the heck out of the vicinity, I mean, these are stories told by people who were raised in Southern California, right? They know if something's on fire, they know what that means. You get out of there as fast as possible, especially if you're around vegetation. It's likely to catch, and so are your sheep, by the way, that don't even belong to you. They belong to your father-in-law. So you get out of there. And so they appreciate, the people writing this story, they appreciate that this is not a normal response, Moshe's response. And we know that because God's like, aha, this is my guy, right? Okay. So something about how long it takes to look into a fire to know that the logs are not actually getting smaller. That doesn't take a second. That takes longer. It takes longer to look at something on fire and see that the fuel itself is not being diminished. That takes a while, and it takes study. And why would you even think that's possible? Like, why would you look for that? That doesn't seem possible. So, and one of my kids this past year, when he was studying this, gave the answer that God seems to want someone who believes that the impossible is possible. Mm-hmm. First time I'd ever heard that interpretation, and out of the mouth of a 13-year-old. I just got chills. But right, it seems, God wants someone who sees, looks long enough, and holds out the possibility that something impossible might be happening here, might be possible. Let me look further. So that's our guy. All right, so that's Moshe. Moshe is now told that I'm the God of your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is possible, you've heard me say this before, as an adoptee, it's a powerful moment for me in the story, that it might be this is where Moshe finds out he's adopted, that his ancestors are, in fact, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, not Bat Paro, and the Paro before him, and the Paro before him, and the Paro before him. It could be this is when Moshe understands he is an Ivri, that those people suffering that he lashed out on behalf of, those are actually his blood relations. Judith?
Back to the fire horse and one other story, which is the fire pine in California, one of the most populous of trees, cannot propagate unless a fire liberates the seeds that come from the cone. I'm looking at this story now to think, as hard it is as it has been for all of us in this year, maybe this is the seed we needed to change something that was greatly in need of changing. And we're saying, no, not me. I don't want this. I want to go back the way it was. This story is so alive.
Thank you, Judith. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That sometimes some things only move into new growth because of fire. Like because of destruction. And I don't know, we were looking out from KI in the sky. We were looking out at the hills, and yesterday as a staff, and we were looking at how green everything looks after all the rain, and after, it's not that green after every rain. It's that green because it all just burned. Right. So it's like, right. Okay. So we were talking about holding all that together. Right. So the other thing that I learned this year from Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs and from another rabbi that I haven't ever studied his commentary before is that we often forget that pagan religion, and we've talked about this a little bit, but pagan religion is all about continuing the cycle, right? I'm not being critical here. Y'all, I hope y'all trust my anthropological background enough to know I'm not being judgmental or critical. The idea of pagan religion is that you make offerings and do rituals and do prayers to continue the cycle of fertility, of rebirth, of the crops growing in the right season, the rain falling in the right season and not in the wrong season. And right. So you want to keep the cycle of nature and all of the forces working within that. You want to keep it going. That's the point. We've talked about that a little bit before, but I didn't get it until this week and reading these commentaries this week on what I'm about to show you in the text, that I realized how radical this story is. If you place it in the pagan ancient world, the Canaanite pagans, the Midianite pagans, the Egyptian pagans, if you put this story there, then it's actually super radical that God says, when Moshe asks, who am I supposed to say sent me? What shall I say to them? They're going to ask me which God, because that's kind of important in paganism. Which force are we dealing with here, right? That's really important to know how to relate and what to do. And what does God say? Ehyeh asher ehyeh. I will be what I will be. And says, thus shall you say to the people Israel, Ehyeh sent me to y'all. We've talked about this in many different ways. I want to focus on, especially this year for us, especially right now, especially as Judith just mentioned, our resistance to the destructive aspects of new growth. And again, you know me, I'm not a silver linings kind of gal. This should not have happened. A lot of us are really angry in a lot of different ways, and we're angry about the inequities we see in the wake of these fires. I was just with the governor, sitting with faith leaders from Altadena, and it's just horrific, the inequities that are happening in the wake of the fires and trying to rebuild. So we're entitled to all of that. What I think is so fabulous for me this year is that we are a people from our inception, our absolutely beginning stories are radically breaking with what was around them to say. We are no longer going to be a people who make sure everything keeps going. We have the existential chutzpah with this moment of Torah to understand divinity as something future-oriented, something that's not here. Think about how radical that is in a world where you're just, all religion is trying to keep things going, the status quo going. The Ehyeh asher ehyeh is how God defines God's self. That is future tense. I will be, not I am what I am, although that makes a better Broadway song. I am what I am. Okay, but so it's not I am what I am, it's I will be what I will be. I am becoming what I am becoming. It's not now. It is future oriented. That is a brand new religious idea. And for me this year, right, what's God for me in all of this is not here yet. Like what I'm supposed to become out of all of this isn't here yet. It's okay that I still hate it. It's okay that I don't have all of the muscles exercised and strong and in place to be able to lift this. That's what God is trying to say to Moshe. That's what I'm all about. That's what I am. That's the definition of me. The definition of it is that it is becoming what it will become. That is the eternal. That's the eternal. That's what we mean by the eternal. Not that which has always been and is here now and will always be. That's one sense of Yud Hey Vav Hey. Yes. Existence, capital E. Being, capital B. Yes. But it's worse than that, people, from this perspective of how radically different it is from just existence and what's always been. It's saying existence is about becoming. We never get to sit and go, okay, now I'm a person who can deal with what life gives. Whew, that took a long time to get here. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. We are always becoming, because there's always something else, right, that's happening that we're responding to and that we have to change to meet. We have to. And always we resist change as human beings. We hate it. It doesn't feel good. We'd rather just have everything go the same, even if we hate some of that. Better than hating the stuff right? Then who knows what might be, and how am I going to relate to that? Like, that's not me. I'm not that person, right? Betsy?
Given what you just described, I mean, how can one have faith in the now, in the here and now, in something that it will be what it will be, or it's not here yet. It's not present for us. I mean, where is God to support us right now in this current time?
So maybe I overstated my argument. Let me pull back a little. It's not that God is only in the future. It's that the very nature of divinity is found in that which is unfolding, including in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And like Judith said, there's a seed that seed something has to happen to allow that seed to flourish and to grow. And our job, I think part of what this text said to me this year is our job is to notice and trust that it's on fire, but it's not being consumed. And there is that which will move forward and grow. And we find the comfort and the strength, I believe, to do that and trust that in each other. And the fact that it's happened before, not a fire, but some kind of catastrophe. And we got through. Every calamity we've gotten through and grown from, when we were in it, we didn't know we were going to come through it and be okay on the other side. And I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it makes sense in my head, which is really a frightening place of the time.
Well, I kind of get that this is a test. This is a giant test, and we'll come through it because we'll come together as a community. We'll get through it together.
I don't know that I would call it just for me. I don't love test because then that means there's a point to why everything burned down.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more that for me, this is the nature of reality, capital R. Things unfold. Things do not stay the same. They unfold. It evolves. God evolves because it all evolves and changes. And our work is to find a way to relate to that constant changing nature of it all with some kind of equanimity and some kind of awe and some kind of wonder, and to find comfort where we can. Right, in our daily liturgy. Thank you for helping me wake up this morning. Right, that's one of the prescriptions we're given because the rabbis know it all changes and we can't be certain of anything. So what do? You wake up in the morning and go, thank you that I woke up this morning. Right, we have practices to orient us in this moment, to be grateful for this moment. Think about the Shechianu blessing. Right, that's how we acknowledge stuff, is like, thank you for bringing me to this moment. Because this is a new moment and a new experience, or a new one that I haven't had in a while. And that is what we bless also about the nature of existence, is that we are brought to a new moment every moment. All right. I got a lot of hands. Okay. Rachel?
Just a little thing. I wanted to say that I think that sense of unfolding is coded into the very text itself, not just with the, I am becoming what I am becoming, but when you gave the definition of the word for remembering in Hebrew, or when we look at the letters in the word sneh, the samach and the nun, and I'm sure we've talked about this before, but now it resonates on a different level for me, because if you look at this as a little, foreshadowing or a test for Moshe, then the sneh is here. Moshe is afraid of this close interaction with God. But at Sinai, now he will spend so long up on Sinai in that close communion, acting as the interlocutor, right? So it's coded into the very, right down to the letters.
Yeah, nice. Like. And because Moshe evolves.
Exactly. Right.
So we have Moshe
it's really
here
the
like,
becoming.
Whoa. This is a lot. If God is here, right? This is a lot. Then becomes a guy who can hang out with God for 40 days and 40 nights.
Yep. Exactly.
Moshe becomes a leader. Beautiful.
Exactly.
Beautiful, Rachel.
Exactly.
Robin.
I think what really struck me, your teaching is so beautiful about the idea of unfolding, but there is something unsettling about it, right? Like, that's the part that, I don't know, God's saying, hey, I'm going to be there howsoever I'm going to be there. Not, I don't know what that means exactly. And maybe there are moments where we're not going to feel God so much, right? And so it's living with that uncertainty, but holding on to that connection, I guess, that.
Yes. Yes. And that's the moment we're in a huge way right now, many of us, right? And certainly for us as a community, that's the moment we're in. We have no idea. And here we are, Friday mornings at 10, as we have been for 3,000 years, right? Tamara?
I have a question, two short ones. How did we confuse I am that I am with I will be what I will be? That's a big thing to confuse. And that, is it possible that they're both true, that they both exist in the definition?
The aleph in ehyeh is the future tense. Person I, future tense, will be. There is no argument about that. It gets translated into other languages by other people as I will be what I will be. Why? I think because if you look at Plato and Aristotle, and then in the medieval period, you have Neo-Aristotelianism and Neoplatonism. What is their whole thing about God? God is unchanging. God is thought thinking itself. God is the unmoved mover. God is outside of change. For them, or for the people who see these scriptures as their scriptures, living in that environment, that's the other times we've pushed back against the religious norms of the time. Is to say, no, we are not Aristotelian. We are not Platonists. We're not Neoplatonists, right? So both in the Greek period, the Roman period, and the medieval period, Jews said, ehyeh asher ehyeh is future tense, and it's all about change. So we have always resisted people's wanting this to mean, I am what I am. But if I will be what I will be is true, well, then of course what I am in this moment, I am, is also true, right? Like it doesn't negate that. But what it suggests is it's not put in the present. It's put in the future. I think that I never really I mean, I've always loved it, but I never really till this year went, oh, of course. Because that's the revolution of the Israelite people. And it continued to be revolutionary.
Right.
When everyone else was worshiping the unmoved mover. The Israelites were worshiping the God that is becoming.
We're always creating.
We're always part of creation, creating
right.
and recreating itself. We have one day out of 7 where all we do is recreate.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
An earlier thought that is it so easy to focus on, especially the earlier fire myself, on current, but all of us who are Ashkenazic are Holocaust survivors. If our parents hadn't fled the fires, we wouldn't. And it's so catastrophes happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still here. And to me, like KI is just keep bigger and better, not diaspora.
Yeah. From your mouth, as we say, to God's ears, right? All right. I'm just going to give you what I loved from my studies. God was saying to Moses and to the people in ehyeh asher ehyeh, you will have to trust me. The destination to which I'm calling you is just beyond the visible horizon. I feel like I want to make that a poster and put it up in my room, right? Like, you will have to trust it. The destination to which I'm calling you is just beyond the visible horizon. It is very hard to understand how revolutionary this was. Ancient religions were deeply conservative, designed to show that the existing social hierarchy was inevitable, part of the deep structure of reality, timeless and unchangeable. Just as there was a hierarchy in the heavens and another within the animal kingdom, so there was a hierarchy in human society. That was order. Anything that challenged it represented chaos. Until Israel appeared on the scene, religion was a way of consecrating the status quo. That is what the story of Israel would overturn. The greatest empire on earth was about to be overthrown. The most powerless of people, foreigners, slaves, were going to go free. This was not simply a blow to Egypt. Although it would take thousands of years, it was a deadly blow to the very concept of a hierarchical society. or of a time as what Plato called it, a moving image of eternity, a series of passing shadows on a wall of reality that never changes. Instead, history became an arena of change. Time became something understood as a narrative, a journey, or a quest. All this is hinted at in those three words, Ehyeh, Asher, Ehyeh. I am the God of the future tense. A few years, I don't know why I put this on. Oh, I love this. Look at this, y'all. Look at this. He's quoting someone who published a book in which he called human beings Homo prospectus. How much do you love that? Homo prospectus. What is it, he asked, that makes Homo sapiens different from other species? They answered, we have an unrivaled ability to be guided by imagining alternatives stretching into the future. Prospection. We are the future-oriented animal. What? Homo prospectus. Right? Right. No other animal has the ability except Homo sapiens to imagine a future. We're the only ones with that capability as far as we know. And that is, Bert saying, yeah, quote your source. Okay. Go ahead, Alex.
Well, this just has me thinking about our current moment, which is, who are we to trust in terms of leadership now? Because here we are amid a very polarized time. The world, of course, seems chaotic to many. And when our own leaders, shall we say you, and our clergy also face catastrophe. So where are we to go from here, and who are we to trust in terms of leadership? Where is our Moses, right, to bring us out of this time? And I'm thinking ultimately it has to be, yes, forged in community, but we have to be our own Moses. Who else is going to do it? I don't see, other than when we rely on you and your colleagues, how are we to move forward in this time?
Thank you. So a couple thoughts. One is that's why the rabbi sees on the word, they cried out, because really they understand that, first of all, we have to complain that this is not okay. That why did it take 400 years? Like someone said, 400 years God forgot? No, 400 years they accepted this as a reality and did not believe in the possibility of change out of a sense of this is unjust. So we have to cry out. There better be protests in the street about ICE. There better be protests in the street about they let us burn. They better be, we have to raise our voices and say this is absolutely unacceptable. And then we have to have talented minds and courageous, forward-thinking people, future-oriented people to say, therefore, let's do X instead of Y, right? Miriam Czar, who was Woman of the Year when she got the big one, I got the little one, but whatever. So she, she's at Palisades Recovery Coalition. They've put together a plan from listening to charrettes of all these people saying, we have good ideas and we have terrible ideas, but we're going to put it all together into a report that she told the mayor at our meeting with the mayor this past week, you need to read this. You don't need to do this because you'll decide. You have smarter people than us in these areas, but you need to consult it. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, yes, the rabbis understand we need leadership, good, responsible, amazing leaders, and they give us in Torah a huge list of what that needs to look like, the qualities of leaders, what that should look like. But also, they take very seriously the notion of we each have to find the Moshe within us. Like you said, we each have to...
The impossible is possible.
Find the part of us that believes, thank you, Laura, that the impossible is possible. And each of us has a different way and a different place we are able to do that. Some people do it around this. Some people do it around that. I do it around KI. Seems impossible for us to continue to survive in this kind of a way with everyone spread out and blah, 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 blah. I believe the impossible is possible. That's mine. That's my Moshe. Other people have theirs. So what we have to call on the Moshe in us in moments like this to pull us out of Mitzrayim. Meitzarim, the rabbis read. Don't read Mitzrayim, Egypt. Read to pull us out Meitzarim, to lead us out from the narrow, constricted places of thinking, right? Of believing, of seeing. And that is liberation. And that happens for each one of us. And each one of us, by the way, not only has a Moshe in here, who else do we have in here? Well, we're going to see it next week. Bo. God says, Bo el Pa'o. Come to Pharaoh. Come to Pharaoh. Right there. There's Pharaoh in here, and there's Moshe in here, and there's a bunch of kvetchy Israelites in here. There's a bunch of Tzipporah in here, right? These are archetypes, and we have to lean in hard to those aspects of ourselves, as well as those aspects of our people, as well as those aspects of our civic society, as well as the world community, and support leaders that we believe have the qualities of Moshe. And then we can see that Hine hasne bo'er ba'esh, behold, yes, it's burning. V'hasne enenu ukal. And the sneh is not consumed. This verse of Torah, some of you know, during the Middle Ages when Jewish villages were burned, women were raped, everyone was murdered. The people living through that took this line of Torah and put it in their afternoon liturgy, maybe the morning. They made this line a line of prayer. They who had suffered the incredible awfulness of fire set on purpose because they were Jews, they put this line in their liturgy and they said it every morning in shul. The sneh is burning. It is not. Shabbat shalom.
You've been listening to Rabbi Amy Bernstein's Friday morning Torah study from Kehillat Israel in Pacific Palisades, California. For more information, go to our website, www.ourki.org.